to leadership positions across the board. They now sit at or near the head of the IMF, the World Bank, and even our own Federal Reserve. They also control much of what happens at the central banks of China, Russia, India, Brazil, Canada, and Europe. As you know, these institutions form a kind of global superstructure. These elites share one vision, and they're about to make it a reality. That vision is one world order, one world taxation, and one world money. When the next crisis hits, the elites are planning to freeze the financial system, and they'll replace it with a new system, one not based on the US dollar.
This is what I was talking about, political reform, to destroy the trust between governments and the people so they can usher in a new kind of political system. Whether blockchain and artificial intelligence ties right into this, that's a whole different rabbit hole, perpetuated by the World Economic Forum, the Bank of International Settlements, and the IMF.
Yeah, so every country on the planet's had to stockpile dollars for the last 50 years in order to buy oil. And oil makes the world go round. You take that away, and what is behind the dollar, it becomes truly fiat, backed by nothing. There's something out there called Project Sandman. There's a whole group of 150, 175 countries that have agreed to do just that, to dump dollars in treasuries at a predetermined time. The natural reaction of the dollar creating hyperinflation, being dumped across the globe, hitting our shores in a tsunami of inflation, would be a massive spike in interest rates. The dollar would collapse. The stock market would collapse. The bond market would collapse. Banking system would collapse. The insurance companies would collapse. This is the Great Reset.
Everyone's going to run to the bank at the same time, and there's not going to be anything there. That is exactly what they've anticipated before they put all of this into motion.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting live stream today. Today, I have with me the two incredible gentlemen from the XRP community. We've got Blackswan Capitalist founder Versan Aljarrah and Kuwl Show founder Rob Cunningham. And as mentioned, these guys are two absolute, just wonderful human beings. And I'm very fortunate to consider them friends and mentors as we navigate one of the most interesting times in human history. But gentlemen, how you doing today? Thanks for joining me.
Doing terrific, man. Thank you so much. This is going to be an exciting call.
I believe so.
Outstanding, Ray. Thank you for having me, man. It's great to be with two like-minded leaders and cool guys.
Oh, absolutely. Cool guys. Oh, thank you for that. I was I don't know about that, but you guys are definitely the coolest here on the show, the Kuwl Show. Anyways, gentlemen, Versan, let's kick it off with you, sir. And thank you for joining us. I had a great time watching your production yesterday with Digital Dave, Eno, and of course yourself. And your brother. But I wanted to touch base on a couple things. But before we kick off, let's start off with what's Blackswan Capitalist and what has inspired you to go down this road of assisting others on their financial journey?
Well, what has inspired me is the fact that the US dollar and the global crisis is just getting closer. That's what inspired me. What we do is we provide one-on-one coaching calls to help investors capitalize on crypto, digital assets, how to protect your wealth, how to develop a robust exit strategy, and just generally understanding market cycles and financial markets so you can make better informed decisions. That's pretty much what we do.
Awesome. I have up on screen right now your website, blackswancapitalist.io. Beautiful website, by the way. Very inspiring. Can you tell me, it seems like this is a portal for others to access for your one-on-one bookings. Can you tell me a little bit about the services you offer?
Yeah, sure. So we pretty much just offer a one-on-one coaching call. It's an hour-long Zoom call. And of course, you can stretch it. I normally go beyond an hour just to give people all the information they need. But we charge roughly $499 for 1 hour, but the information that we give you guys is just extraordinary and it's overwhelming too. So it helps you really not just break that eccentric dollar matrix system. It also helps you to look at things in a different perspective. And then of course, how to capitalize on the technologies. And at the end of the call, we also send you some inside documents from the Bank of International Settlements, the World Bank, the IMF, to where you could read this, what we've been talking about in detail right there on paper.
Excellent. Inspiring. And thank you for that. I appreciate it, Versan. Rob, I'd love to give you the stage as well. Can you talk about the Kuwl Show and what has inspired you to go down this road every day to get in the trenches and just advocating for what you believe in?
Well, thank you, Ray. Yeah, if I was to nail it down to one thing, and it's just an unquenchable pursuit of truth. And I've always been curious my whole life. I ask the question why every day, every minute, every hour of my life. And I don't like to be lied to. I just want to know what the truth is, and things have never made sense. But I've been a passionate historian. I've been a military guy. I've been a investment banker. I've been my wife and I owned a company together for 22 years. We do leadership development, sales training. And so you have to look at everything objectively, not subjectively. And we do have to find the truth out for ourselves instead of accepting the narratives that are rained down upon us. And so my passion has been share my truth to the greatest degree possible with as many people as possible, because I've got a heart for knowledge, and I've got a heart for my two beautiful daughters. They're going to be living in this world a lot longer than I am, and shame on me if I take what I know to the grave and don't share it and give it away to the world and let everybody else at least have a chance to call me an idiot or look a little deeper. Whichever one they want to do is up to them. But I think my passion is, a lot that we've been taught and or mistaught, in the great law book is there's a father of lies, and this whole world's kind of corrupted, and you have to live in this world but not of it. What does that even mean? How do you live in this world but not of it? And how do you separate the iOS that might be invisible that came from somewhere else in the jungle of this place called Earth? And how do you navigate those two worlds? And man, I'll tell you, the last 4 years, Ray, has brought for me clarity like I've never experienced in my life. The reality of how deep and dark and evil this place can be, and how beautiful and joyful and abundant, true, what's the old saying? Perfect love cast out all fear. To live in this world as we see the chaos with our eyes, without any fear, joy, hope, and optimism, people either think you're onto something or you're crazy as batshit.
Yep.
I think the latter of the two it occurs more often than not, but that's for us to prove them right. And typically I hear this all the time about, because people tend to believe a lot of the things that we discuss on our shows, and mostly in the XRP community, is under the veil of conspiracy theories and things of that nature. And that's where, I always just mention, what is it? The saying is it's a conspiracy until six months, or now it's 6 weeks with the technology at our fingertips. And so again, it's just up to us to fight for what we believe in and continue to get in the trenches and advocate for those beliefs. But anyways, let's jump into the meat and potatoes of today, guys. And I appreciate you sharing your endeavors on the channel. It's, again, more inspiring for me than hopefully those in the audience, because you guys, I look up to you and me on the pursuit of what you guys are doing, encouraging and educating others. Again, for me, this is great, and a great opportunity to get into a live stream with you two legends. Now, switching gears here, I'd love to talk about, we heard Andy Schectman at the beginning of this production talk about the petrodollar, which is potentially being phased out. What do you think is the incentive for countries to hold the currency as it is being inflated away at the rate of, I believe, $1 trillion in debt every single 100 days? Something that used to take nearly 200 years to accumulate $1 trillion. Do you think with these exposures, we heard a representative of a country, or excuse me, of Africa, where he mentioned that, I think it was a year-old clip, for those who are holding on to the US dollar, be fearful. You're going to get caught basically holding the bag. What are your thoughts on this potential occurrence of these countries worldwide dropping the petrodollar, aka Project Sandman?
Well, real quick, first of all, I'd like to inject into what Rob said. The search for
Sure.
truth is very important because most people in today's world are led astray because of propaganda. And that's why I think so many people are facing all these challenges. Propaganda is also a major reason for all the hatred, the anger, and the frustration among people instead of fostering love and kindness and empathy. So looking for the truth will eventually result in the qualities that really define who we are as human beings. So I thought that was a very beautiful message, Rob, first of all.
Thank you.
Yeah, as far as the monetary system, what Andy Schectman was saying basically is that the world is undergoing significant transitions, the monetary system. Central banks are evolving, financial institutions are adopting, and what we're doing is we're moving away from the traditional monetary system where fiat currency has played the dominant role, and we're shifting towards a new kind of monetary system that is going to be characterized by the tokenization of real-world assets on a distributed ledger technology. The dollar, once dominant as a reserve currency, is continuously in decline, and the decline is not just driven by threats from the Brics nations and so forth, but it's because of the actions of our own political corruption. The politicians are corrupt. Interestingly as well, central bankers have always known that the central banks would eventually collapse under the weight of its own debt. So what we're doing is looking to the future. And as we look to the future, the critical question is if all the world's assets are going to be tokenized in a digital economy running on a distributed ledger technology that's scalable enough to handle the world's global wealth. Which technology are we betting on? And I think without a doubt, that's where Ripple comes into the equation because they are at the forefront of this transition, building those payment rails that will facilitate the new system, utilizing the digital asset XRP. So that's like a macro view of what Andy is talking about.
Mm-hmm. Now, what makes you believe that it's Ripple and XRP that are at the helm of this digital transformation?
Well, the fact that they're building the payment rails, if they're building the payment rails for all the central banks and financial institutions to communicate and transact within each other and to even stabilize currencies, that's the ideal candidate for a reserve currency. And that's why I believe they're at the forefront, because it's Ripple that's using building RippleNet for the infrastructure to where they can use XRP to settle transactions. And then liquidity and all the other things come into the equation as well. That's understanding the technology.
You know, and Rob, I'd love to get your thoughts as well. How about before I shift gears, I'd love to get your perspective as well, Rob.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I love and admire about Andy Schectman the most is he really breaks down the why question. Why gold? Why is that so critical to this transition period that we're in right now? And I think it's important for us not to just skip past this, but we need people to understand the monetary system as it's constructed is based on centralization and inflation and debt. Centralization of control, inflation to constantly add more currency into the system from a centralized source, and inflation, which is legalized theft. The central banking system that runs the central bankers in the world can only operate this system with inflation by constantly adding debt and constantly adding supply of money. And the more they add into it, then the less and less and less our value of our currency in circulation becomes. It's called becoming worth less when they put more into the system. If people really understood that this system is designed to be like a disposable Bic lighter used for a certain period of time and thrown away, then we could back up one step further and say, the big lie is they never intended to pay the debt off. Yep. It's not ever intended to be paid off. This system runs on inflation, which is theft, and concepts that are very Marxist, that extract wealth out of the systems and the users of the system and relocates that wealth into centralized elite hands. That is the fundamentals of central banking. Gold disrupts that entire process. Gold can't be printed out of the ethersphere. Gold can't be inflated out of existence. Gold can't be hoarded where 2% of the people own 95% of the gold. Mm-hmm. And if that becomes the basis of a sound system mated with a company like Ripple that's putting the rails around the world, and there's perfect transparency and accountability to the system that's backed by a physical commodity that the entire world recognizes, and we can say the price of gold is $3,000, and that's the true north for all the 205 nations in the world. 205 is 205 is 205, and it applies to every nation. There's none of this QE1, QE2, BIS, different exchanges, and different formulations and algorithms and derivatives. And no, $3,000 is $3,000. Gold is gold. Everybody has a level playing field and a level accurate, trustless accounting ledger. So you don't have two sets of books and secret books, an unaccountable book. Our books, called our income taxes, right? They're accountable down to every $5 cup of coffee. The governments can misplace $7 trillion and we don't even know where the hell it went. Mm-hmm. That's not a level playing field. That's not transparent. That's slavery.
Agreed. Very nicely said, by the way.
Absolutely. And on the topic of Andy Schectman, what he mentioned during his interview on Kitco, he mentioned how the US dollar was used for two functions, being the reserve and settlement for as a reserve asset, and then also for a unit for settlement. Thoughts on, and to your point, Versan, you had also, let me see if I can share this in real time. Share screen. Let's go to your Twitter page here. You put out a post today. XRP is going to replace the role of the US dollar. I mean, for those let's just say those two instances for a reserve asset and then also for settlement, obviously we know that that is exactly what XRP or the XRPL is for, or used as. Thoughts on, is that what's empowering your tweet at the bottom here? Let me bring it up to the top of the screen. XRP is going to replace the role of the US dollar. That's just a fact that hasn't been revealed yet.
Yeah, that's an impulsive tweet I put out. And yes, it's, in my opinion, is still accurate, because with the dollar functions not just as a global reserve currency, or it did. It was a store of value once. It was supposed to be a store of value, and countries had to use it if they wanted to trade amongst each other. Now, with the dollar's reserve status under threat, then there's a pressing need for a substitute. Now, when you understand XRP, I think it emerges as a strong candidate to be that substitute, because it doesn't just bridge the currencies as a cross-border settlement mechanism, very similar to how the dollar did, has the ability, again, to stabilize those currencies as well. And XRP is the only regulated digital asset that is interoperable with other digital assets and provides the on-demand liquidity that is required to settle those transactions. So I just think we're at a very unique point in history where everything we've been talking about continues to converge with these developments that are leading us into a new monetary order. So it's just very exciting time to discuss and learn about the transformative changes that are before us. Will XRP play a role as a reserve currency? Sounds like it. Absolutely. You know, with XRP, you won't need the dollar anymore.
Wow.
There's no need for it. And also, if I may add,
and Ray,
for all we know, sorry, Rob, real quick, for all we know, XRP could be the solution instead of going to nuclear war. I'm not kidding about that. And I have my own analysis and theories for that as well.
What were you going to say, Rob? And actually, before you do, what are your theories, Versan? Let's double click on that. Would you be willing to share if you don't mind?
Absolutely. It's a little bit of a rabbit hole topic, but I think that if XRP is going to be used as a global reserve currency settlement mechanism, it could avoid the fact that we have to go to war, because now we can circumvent the dollar. And it also aligns with something that's perpetuated by the United Nations, and that goes into a whole nother rabbit hole. I don't know if we'll have enough time to actually discuss that thoroughly. I might be able to tie it in towards the end when we talk about Trump, maybe what happened to him the other day, which I think is a very important thing too.
Are you leading towards Project Embridge by chance?
We can talk about Project Embridge because I think it fits right into this. You know, if we're going to be,
yeah, let's save that towards the end of this conversation because I do want to bring up on the screen the BIS's website highlighting the Project Embridge. So let's shelf that for a hot second. But Rob, I'm sorry to cut you off, sir. What were your thoughts in regards to the XRP used in regards to a reserve asset, then also for a settlement system? Did we lose you, Rob? Uh-oh.
Rob?
Looks like Rob's lost in the metaverse here.
Maybe it's a bad internet connection. There we go. He's coming back on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? When we're waiting for him to log back on, why don't we just, do you want to shift to either talking about Project Embridge in more detail as far as it
We'll get to Project Embridge in a second, but I want to share something while we're waiting. I had a very fascinating discussion. It didn't get a lot of views on YouTube, but with John Butler. Now, John Butler, he worked very closely with Judy Shelton, and he knows her personally. Now, he explained to us the transition from good money, like hard assets such as gold and silver, which was before 1971, to bad money. And that's where fiat currencies like the dollar, right? And we're seeing very slowly the gradual return to good money with precious metals. I think we're in the early stages as well as of a super cycle for commodities and precious metals. As we move into the digital world, the demand for silver is going to increase exponentially, making it also a reliable store of value and a very solid investment. So I wanted to kind of touch on what Rob was saying over there about precious metals. And we know for a fact that the market has been rigged for so long, but I think the manipulation of the metals market being rigged is actually coming to an end. There's a big Brics meeting taking place in October where they have the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and they are about to start setting their own prices. And then people and governments would prefer trading at higher prices for precious metals rather than lower manipulated prices set by the West. So I thought that was very interesting.
Very much so. What are your thoughts on the, since we're on talking about precious metals and things of that nature, what are your thoughts on the necessity of investing into metals during downtimes for the digital asset ecosystem?
Yeah, real quick, you know, gold and silver, I think, hold a very crucial place in anybody's portfolio. That is real money. It's real, it's tangible money. And again, as we transition into a digital world, and that's where everything's going, I think the allure of owning tangible assets should remain strong. Because like for me, it's certainly a priority in my portfolio. I prefer to own physical, tangible assets than I do digital, despite the fact that I still have a critical and significant position in the digital asset space. But majority of my portfolio is still in precious metals. And I've always, you know, I've always shared that with people from the beginning.
On the topic of precious metals, thoughts on coins having silver being stripped from the coins in or around 1964. What are your thoughts on the purpose for doing such?
Debasing the currency. Plain and simple. If they can debase the currency, they're stealing your wealth. And just like Rob said earlier, that's exactly what's been going on. This central bank is a Ponzi scheme. And how he mentioned that we keep adding to the debt, and the debt keeps growing exponentially, and it never gets paid. The reason we keep lifting the debt ceiling is because we don't plan to pay off the debt ever. And that's something Rob mentioned, and he's spot on, correct?
So then if they're never to pay off, or we're never to pay off the debt, do you think that it could be used as a means for tokenizing? Tokenizing?
Yeah.
You think
that's where the XRP ledger would come in again? Yeah.
So you think that's potentially what could trigger a flip of the switch moment at all of a sudden? You know?
Absolutely. Very good point, by the way, Ray. Very good point. Yes, it could play out like that, you know? The reason I think the price of XRP has to be so high is not just because of all the debt, but because of everything else. Tokenizing real world assets, tokenizing everything. That's going to be on a scalable ledger, including debt. And they want to monetize debt too. They'd be able to do that with the XRP ledger as well. I think just the XRP, I think, is going to be the solution to the banking crisis and to how everything else is going to unfold in the geopolitical landscape as well. It's the solution to everything. It really is. So plays a key role in everything that's happening in the world right now.
Oh man, while you were speaking, we were sitting on 589 viewers on tuning into this show. I thought that was pretty interesting. Rob, what are your thoughts, sir? And good to have you back. We were on the topic of XRP as a reserve asset and a settlement layer, similar to the functionalities or functions of the primary functions, or what used to be the primary functions for the dollar.
Yeah, I agree that that's ultimately the final destination. That's where we're going. But I want to back up a little bit too, Ray, and for the benefit of people that might be just now coming on, and since this weekend's activities, I think that woke up a whole brand new tranche of people in America to go, wait a minute, something's going on here. What's happening? And it's so important for people to operate, first of all, from a standpoint of knowledge and without fear. If you don't have fear, then you can objectively evaluate and better understand with clear eyes what's going on in the world. And here's one of the things that's most important. People do not need to be afraid that the US dollar might lose its world reserve status. Why? We've been told our entire lives we're the greatest country in the world. We have to export our values around the world. And since we won World War II, we got to have the biggest military and the world reserve currency and tell everybody in the world how they should behave, how they should live, and how they should act. Okay? The problem with that is the US dollar is actually the Federal Reserve note. And the people that produce the US dollar is this foreign entity, this foreign globalist Marxist organization known as the Bank of International Settlements, founded by Mayor Amstel Rothschild, who Rothschild means red shield. It's Marxist, atheistic in its essence. And the Federal Reserve took over the U.S. Treasury, and they print and control the U.S. dollar. And they make the U.S. dollar the world reserve currency, and everybody has to reverse engineer their nations and exchanges and currencies and trading corridors to the U.S. dollar. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. When we go back to a real U.S. dollar, printed by the U.S. Treasury, backed by gold and silver, with accountability to we the people, that is a joyful thing to celebrate because it represents not only our independence, but it takes that big hidden hand Rothschild Marxist global Federal Reserve, world reserve currency off the shoulders of every country in the world. And look, if you go back and look at history, John Deaton's famous for saying this, and Andy Schechtman and others, America is the biggest bully on earth. We've created more wars. We've killed more people. We've oppressed more people. And we've dominated. What's the old saying? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've had the absolute most powerful military, made it to the absolute most powerful world reserve currency, and control of the 4 or 5 companies that control 95% of the narrative, the news that everyone hears. So we have the voice, we have the guns, and we have the money. You think we're not arrogant? The good news is when that beast system, that centralized arrogance ends, the whole world gets to experience a new birth of freedom.
Amen. Nicely said. Sorry.
Please. No, please, Versan, continue, sir.
Well, I know you're supposed to be asking the questions, but
No, I'm right here writing notes myself, guys. So please keep going.
Just going with the flow. And I love just how Rob puts things into such context and perspective to where people need to understand. He's right. You don't need to be afraid. This is a good thing. It's something that should be celebrated. We're ending the corrupt Ponzi scheme. So even this ties into what the BRICS is doing. The BRICS nations is fundamentally, they're trying to break free from the dominance of I don't know if I can say the word, but the Khazarian central bank Ponzi scheme. Right. Some people call it the deep state, right? Okay. And I think that fits into the larger narrative of, again, a new type of government quietly being instituted behind the scenes, right? Trust between governments and the people is continuously deteriorating. And many are beginning to even look at our own government, like the Biden administration particularly, which is backed by the Obamas, the Clintons, the George Soroses, and others. They're the ones facing the distrust, and people are really starting to realize that much of the corruption that we see in the world is stemming from our own government and the military-industrial complex. So I really like how Rob put that into perspective.
So on that topic, Versan, what do you think would be the remedy? Or I know you mentioned XRP and such as a conduit, but what do you think if in this dystopia world, what does that utopia world look like to you?
Decentralized, open, get rid of the mainstream news. They are perpetuating so much hatred and divisiveness in the country. But if you really want to end the military-industrial complex, you got to cut the dollar. That's one way to start, right? Getting rid of the dollar. I don't mean it in a negative way, right? It's like stops their, like he said, it's a central bank note issued by these corrupt people, right? So if you want to stop the military-industrial complex from perpetuating war all over the world and killing innocent people, you got to stop the dollar somehow or circumvent it at least. It takes their power away.
Yeah, onto the point, diving deeper into that, what power do they have using the dollar currently for those that are new to this conversation?
Just keep printing it.
Printing.
Printing, yes. And they can
continue to do a credit crunch. Mm-hmm.
Sure. Well, they can continuously print. And if they can continuously print, again, if central banks can control the money supply, they can control the economic conditions to which we are all subject to, how we live, right? And because of this as well, people are so distracted with 2 or 3 jobs just trying to put food on the table. They're unable to find the truth. And these are the truths that Rob Cunningham is putting out there, this search for truth to break free from that centric system, that mindset. So the dollar, I think, is a really dangerous weapon. It really is.
Yeah. Well, Ray, to that point, we can go back 2,000 years ago and look at the centralization of the church, the government, and the money changers, right? And when you lust after or worship materialism, power, control, greed, centralization of ego, narcissism, however you want to define it, when people begin to worship, materialism over principles, we're supposed to seek first the truth, the wisdom, and then we'll be blessed when we find our purpose, because we live in this amazingly abundant world, but we grow up in school and we're taught scarcity, fear, the Russians are coming, you're going to burn up the planet, ride a bicycle. Everything is a fear narrative to then immediately get us to be dependent on someone to take the fears away from us. So unfortunately, there's a symbiotic relationship between the more fear they can produce, the more dependency they're able to gain. And when they get more dependency, then they get more control, right? And so they just print a button, they just click a button, they add more money into the system. Well, here's the problem. Money is supposed to represent value, human value. There's only 2 places value comes from: our labor, our talent, our time, our energy, our creativity to build a business, do a podcast, fly an airplane, do open heart surgery, or from the ground: water, fish, trees, fruit, lettuce, oranges, oil, gold, silver. That's value. Money is supposed to represent value, and government are supposed to be stewards of the value of the public welfare for the public benefit. You know, do we need borders? Do we need bridges? Do we need highways? Do we need a post office? Do we need elections? Sure, we're supposed to have good governance, but here's the problem. If you can just click a button and bring and add value out of thin air, like they click a button and add money out of thin air, then they've created a system where they can dilute our value, they can falsely increase the value of the money supply, and then when we adopt their system, well, here comes the IRS, and here comes the state, here comes the federal, and here comes the Department of X, Y, and Z. And if you use their system, governments don't create anything. We, the people, create everything. So how did they get all the onerous power to tell us how to microscopically manage our lives unless they pulled a fast one on us?
Very good point.
That's what we have to know.
With this dual system that's going on, a thought popped into my mind, Rob, while you're talking. You know, especially on the topic of the money printer go burr. We saw earlier this week. I think it was even yesterday. A week ago feels like in the crypto is a day, but regardless, we saw I believe $1 billion or a considerable amount of Tether being printed in this digital distributed ledger ecosystem. Thoughts on why we're also seeing that in this dual like system, we're seeing those similar characteristics or bad behaviors occur in this new economy as well for the moment. Thoughts on that?
Well, it's manipulation. If you can create the money and create unlimited money, then you can create unlimited bureaucracy. You can create unlimited wealth. You can create, again, for those that don't know, Tether is an offshore, non-U.S. domestic company that creates the number one largest stablecoin as of today, about what, $120 billion, something like that, $115 billion in stablecoins, which provides liquidity to the digital asset market, the crypto ecosystem. Okay. If they can print this out of thin air, and there are all kinds of charts, if anyone wants to go and look at it, you can see a perfect parallel between the printing of Tether and the price of Bitcoin, the printing of Tether and the price of Bitcoin. They just introduce the supply, and magically, in almost perfect parallel unison, Bitcoin price goes up, Bitcoin price goes down. More Tether, more Bitcoin. So then the question is, why? That's statistically and mathematically an impossible coincidence for these things to happen as long as they have. So now, why are they manipulating the price of Bitcoin? For whose benefit? For what narrative? And why isn't there ever been an actual audit of this institution that supposedly is a one-to-one backing with solid assets behind the Bitcoin, behind the Tether, but the MiCA regulations in the EU have already told Tether to go away. They're not using them anymore. They're not authorized. And in the new legislation pending in the House of Representatives, Tether will not be a legal stablecoin. So that's going to open up a massive door for Ripple with its RLUSD stablecoin, and then it's going to provide the motor oil of liquidity backed by legitimacy and 100% transparency to what backs that stablecoin. It is going to be like pouring gasoline on the cryptocurrency fire.
Yep.
You're absolutely right. Oh, what were we going to say, Versan? Excuse me.
Oh, when we were at the QFS summit, remember when you came up to me and you asked me what do I think about Bitcoin and Tether? And I said, it's a big bubble waiting to burst.
Yes, it sure is. I should have had that video ready to play earlier.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it was funny.
But now we got to hear it right from the horse's mouth.
Right. But like Rob said, it's also going to open the door. And this hasn't happened yet, but it's going to open the door for Ripple stablecoin and all that money to flow right into there. And I think also that's very interesting how the convergence between, to touch a little bit on what you said, there's just so many factors that play into these discussions. You know, the convergence of precious metals and commodities and blockchain technology is so fascinating because it opens the door for the possibility of returning to a gold standard, because the technology available today, we can tokenize gold in fractions, making it, again, a practical store of value. And this is historical. And I think, again, this is where XRP comes into play with the potential support even of a reevaluation of the and tokenization of precious metals on the distributed ledger technology.
Yeah,
so,
we got a question in the audience from Rob Strong. Thanks for tuning in, Rob. Tokenized gold versus Bitcoin, interesting. And then let's also to throw another monkey in this wrench here on this thought. What about moving even Bitcoin onto the XRPL?
Interesting. If I can make one quick statement, I'll let Rob take this away. So there was an interview. I think it's on my Twitter. I think so. But there's a video of Brad Garlinghouse talking about how they bailed out a Bitcoin company once. And somebody even tweeted once that, banks are insolvent, buy Bitcoin. And I said, Bitcoin is insolvent, buy XRP. So I think, it's possible if Bitcoin is going to survive later on down the road, and I don't think it will, but who knows? It would have to run probably on the XRP ledger.
Yeah, I don't want to
bridge to it. Who knows? And I'm just speculating, guys. I really don't know.
Yeah, no, I really suggest this week I'll be interviewing Jay from Spend the Bits, who's going to be announcing something very interesting. I don't want to spill any beans yet, but it's along.
Well, I'll tune in to watch that for sure.
Yeah,
Rob,
absolutely.
can you add to what I said over there, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have couple of questions. Number one is, if we can digitize gold and everybody in the world knows what the value of gold is, and let's say gold goes to $20,000, maybe there's a revaluation, maybe there's not. It made an all-time brand new high today. All right, over $2,450. So if we can digitize gold and it can be stored in a vault safely, and I can click on my phone, I can tap my phone on the Apple iOS 18 and do tap to pay, and I've configured my wallet to take digital grams of gold and pay Versan with it for a coaching hour, then I've digitized gold. Why do we need digitized gold called Bitcoin when we have digitized gold that's actually real and in existence? I understand the supply. There's only 21 million, and supply and demand, and more people are going to want it because it's built on DLT, and it gets the fat fingers of the government out of the process, and it's more direct and it's more pure. I understand that, but we've moved beyond just the supply and demand argument. It's 21 million, you should buy liquid gold. Well, why don't I just buy actual real gold and digitize it? Okay, do me a favor, if you don't mind, could you pull up a screen for me real quick, Ray?
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you want to share, I think you can share as well. Just go to, do you see a present button?
Let's see. I do. Yeah, I do, right down there. This is a friend of mine. I want everyone to know. Let's see. Share screen. I can do that. Let's see. All right, let me go here.
Love your hat, by the way, Rob.
Thank you, brother. Todd Hancock, a good friend of mine. I got this delivered personally yesterday by Miss Molly Elmore. How about that?
Oh, wow. What service.
He gave it to her, and he knew that we lived in the same state. She dropped it by the house. So thank you so much for my brand new hat, brother. I appreciate you.
Amazing.
Let me, this is a friend of mine. Now, I make nothing on this. I'm not selling this, but I just want to show you what the advent of where we're going. It's going to blow your mind. I think it blew mine when I saw it, and it's just relatively new.
While you're searching, I do want to bring up a message from a member in the audience, Matt Nasta, talking about how Glint is also heading into fractionalized gold transactions. They're already doing that. And then to your point where you mentioned about hooking up a debit card to your Apple Pay, I mean, you could do that with Glint's the Glint MasterCard, and essentially pay for any transaction using
You can walk into a Starbucks and swipe your card, and you have it pointed to you. Just paid a gram for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you're buying with gold. Now, this is a friend of mine, former Air Force Academy graduate, Special Forces helicopter pilot. He's the CEO and founder of a company called CDM.press or CDM Media. Todd Wood is a really good, trusted friend of mine. But look at this. Look at these prepper bars that they're making that look like credit cards you can put in your wallet, and they're silver and gold. You can break them off and do transactions in your local community.
Oh, no way.
Is that not
so cool?
This? See how these things are just, you can buy them in any increment, and then you can also order them. And do I want just 5s or 20s or 100s in the different kind? And you just break them physically with your hand and transfer them to someone. Add on top of that, y'all correct me, how many states have already said trading in gold and silver is zero tax?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right?
Actually, many states are trying to legalize it too. As legal
Correct.
tender.
Correct. Look at, is this not amazing? I mean,
It's incredible.
It's available in gold and silver. And again, 0.999 pure silver or pure gold. They're called prepper bars, but hell, I don't care what you call them. They're gold.
Yeah.
It's money. You know, so if you don't want to do the digital thing, you can do that, you know.
Or you could just pull out one of your gold fillings and hand it over.
Oh my God.
For those
pull out your tooth.
Shameless plug for my buddy, my Air Force buddy, since we were both in the Air Force, we were both pilots. It's CDM bar, BAR, CDMbar.com. Just go check it out. You know, do your own research.
Absolutely.
I'm not selling anything, but that concept is bringing soundness and reality and pure money to reality, no middleman, full stop.
Yeah. And the trend is accelerating too,
Mm-hmm.
going back to a gold standard in some way or form or fashion. What's interesting also is with the XRP too. I know I keep going back to XRP, guys.
It's okay. This is a safe place.
Yeah, it's a safe place. Thank you very much. But remember, you know how they often refer to as the drips, right? Drips or drops?
Yes, drops.
Right. I think it signals the reevaluation of precious metals that's being integrated with the blockchain-based system. And, you know, it aligns with the trend and the objective of even financial institutions where an interest in tokenization, where central banks have also partnered with Ripple to underscore the use case for XRP in the new financial system. Because if you leverage the blockchain technology, you can create that transparent and efficient system to manage precious metals and enhance their role as a store of value in a digital age. So what Rob is talking about, it just modernizes the concept of a gold standard. I think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Versan, on the potential value of XRP when drops are implemented? Would it need to be at a specific value or at a specific use case? What are your thoughts? What would be required in order for the drops to be implemented?
Well, I think, the way I think it's going to play out is that the IMF is, I hate to say a lot of people don't agree with this. I understand that, but I think the IMF is going to have a central. Okay, so the way I look at it is that when the XRP is finally being used by the institute, it's already being used, but once it's out there and actually being used as a reserve currency kind of mechanism, you're going to see a set price, and it can even move higher from there. Because as you use the XRP and it burns, the price keeps going higher. So for it to function the way it needs to function, the price already has to be very high. And that's why I believe it's going to be set. If they're going to start using it immediately, the price would have to be very high for it to do the job that's designed to do. I don't think that answered your question, but that's like as far as I'll go.
I appreciate it. Rob, any thoughts? We're also, we're 7 minutes to the hour. I don't know how much time you guys have. I do want to tackle a couple more questions and also play a couple clips. Rob, did you have any?
No, wide open, brother. As long as you need. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Well, how about?
Let me add a
yeah, please.
Again, at the 40,000 foot level, what we need to understand is one of the greatest technological marvels in our lifetime is this thing called DLT, Distributed Ledger Technology. And distributed ledger technology, it is the magic silver bullet that makes central banking irrelevant. And if the love of money and the caustic narcissism that comes from lusting after it and creating wars to get more wealth and to centralize it and to weaponize it and to use it to control people, if that's the root of all evil, and distributed ledger technology is getting rid of centralized banking and turning the pyramid upside down so it's a bottom-up economy instead of a top-down matrix, why in the world isn't the world having one big, massive Mardi Gras party in celebration about the marvels of distributed ledger technology? The reason that message is not getting out to we the people is because the central bankers who control the matrix, who control the narrative, who control and drive and influence the BlackRocks and the Vanguards don't want we the people to know we can be free, self-sovereign with our own wealth. We don't need the banker involved in our lives. And that leads us out of the cage. And they don't want us out of the cage. It's really no more difficult to understand than that.
Yeah.
And it makes you think real quick, Versan, why didn't mainstream media then also portray or discuss what happened over the weekend? If they were inclined not to do so, similar to what's going on with DLT, it makes you think, then are those two related? What is going on? What would encourage them to not talk about this man being almost assassinated in front of?
Oh, you're talking about Trump.
Now I'm talking about Trump. I'm sorry to switch gears, but it's tying in almost. I mean, to the point of Rob mentioning that there's specific narratives that are purposefully not being displayed across their own channels or the platforms. Then, in a way, why are they also extending those behaviors to even what just occurred over the weekend? You know what?
Yeah.
What would,
so I have two theories on this, and they're theories. Well, the first one I don't think is theory anymore. Regarding the Trump assassination attempt, I think it's very interesting because it almost appears as though the Secret Service allowed the shooter to try to get a shot at him. I'm now convinced, listening to multiple sources and talking to people, that this was an inside job. I keep pulling this up. I know I have a copy of the Wall Street Journal. Thought it was necessary to get it. Not a single article was written about it. And I think that just confirms to me that they've been trying to bury the story. And again, watching the news even further, they claim that he tripped. And I just think it's so sad because, you know, life is precious. It doesn't matter who you are, what you have against them or not, whether you're Republican or Democrat. It's just sad because it shows how far the lengths they'll go to hide the truth. Interestingly, the shooter was an Antifa member, part of the Democratic Uni Party. And what's interesting is even the people who are behind the Democratic Uni Party are real Zionists. I think these are modern day Nazis hiding behind the Democratic and Liberal Party. And let's just hope these individuals are held accountable, because this could be the stir up of a new kind of war, or it could be the end of the deep state, which I really would hope to see happen. But it's certainly a turning point in the political landscape. And now I do have another theory, if you guys will let me indulge.
please.
So I've been following the United Nations for a very long time. I put a tweet out the other day and I actually removed it. I didn't think it was appropriate. But I believe the UN is really responsible for most of the wars and the divisiveness that we see in the world. And I think this is also done to accelerate the narrative, or try to accelerate the narrative of a new kind of government. Let's hope it's not the wrong kind of government, but I do believe that the UN is behind most of the trouble we see in the world today. And the puppet leaders for the UN are the World Economic Forum, the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF, and the World Bank. And I'd like to also note that the World Bank's parent organization is the United Nations. So I think that the assassination attempt on Trump's life could be a way to further erode trust between governments and the people, to use that as a reason to bring in a new kind of political reform, or it could be a reason to even now attack Biden and blame it on Trump supporters, thereby even deepening the divide in the country. So I just think that what we saw happen over there ties us into the global landscape, because the division is going to either help them achieve the political reforms that are necessary to either a one world government or to ending this deep state. Who knows what's going to happen? And what I was trying to mention earlier, that they might even use XRP as a solution for a one world currency. And I think just, the narrative is part of a larger plan to implement such global changes. I may be wrong, but it has certainly helped his numbers get up, and he is the rightful president. I do believe the election was stolen from him. And I hope to see the changes that I've been hearing about from a lot of my friends.
What say you, Rob?
Versan, you couldn't be more perfectly spot on. 2020 is not over. It's not been resolved. They can ignore it. They can act like it is. They can act like Trump's the bad guy, and they can have 17 hearings. They can impeach him twice. They can raid Mar-a-Lago. Oops, never mind. That was unconstitutional. Oops, the Chevron doctrine is going to get rid of the New York case. It's going to get rid of the Fulton County case. It's going to get rid of the lack of immunity. The Chevron doctrine is going to take the teeth out of the deep state, and it's going to give us back our liberty. That's not a bad thing. It's an excellent thing. What we have right now is a Chevron ruling in 1984 that says, if Congress isn't really sure about the how to interpret an environmental policy, we'll just let the EPA clarify it, and whatever they say, that will be law.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last week the Supreme Court said, no, it doesn't work that way. You make the laws. The regulators that are not elected, they don't get to make the laws. But what has happened since 84 until now, what is that, 60, how many is that, 20, 40 years? Mm-hmm. It gives some boneheaded academic regulator in the EPA can decide, 3 inches of water in your backyard's a stream. That's a wetland. It's an environmental protected, surface. And we're going to come take your property because you violated EPA regulations. And not one damn law was ever passed. Mm-hmm. So it was a way to punt the responsibility of legalisms into the regulatory swamp. And Congress could go, that wasn't me. That was the EPA. That was the Department of Energy. That was the Department of Health. That was the Department of Transportation. We're going to have to, I'm going to write them a letter. They outsourced their responsibility to make the laws. And then they said, well, I'm not culpable because it's them. And the Supreme Court said that kabuki theater is over. You can't do that anymore. So now look at what we're going to have. Let me go back to the weekend's event. I want everyone to please, please, please understand this is not a left versus right issue.
Yeah.
This is not, blue versus red. This is demonic evil versus life. This is freedom and liberty versus death and control. Silencing Trump is about what he has said all along. It's not me that they're after, it's you. I'm just standing in the way. And if that wasn't more of a perfect embodiment to validate every time he's ever said that, it's not me that they hate, it's you. They're just having to take me out because I'm the head of the movement. If people understood that MAGA is the largest political movement on earth, this is not just an American thing, because the rest of the world understands we do have this covenant document called the Declaration of Independence, and we are at our origin, on our true birth certificate as a nation, supposed to represent life, liberty, freedom, unalienable rights, and a very tiny limited government. Mm-hmm. That's what we were born on. If the deep state kills America, as America goes, so goes the rest of the world. And that's why the world is standing up and applauding the MAGA movement and cheering us on, because they realize we are slaves caught in a slave matrix. They also understand that we're bankrupt, we're insolvent, we're morally bankrupt. The swamp is just a cesspool. And that is why we have Brics. We have, in October of this year, when 60 or so countries join the 15 that we already have in Brics, we're going to have about 90% of the world's population off of the dollar.
Mhm.
90% of the landmass, 90% of the population, 90% of the manufacturing capacity, 90% of the rare earth minerals, 90% of the shipping lanes, probably more than 90% of the military power. Who's big bad America going to go start a war with now if 90% of the country and the countries and the population is off the dollar system and not under the thumb of the Rothschilds that control the dollar system? What's America going to go start a war with Russia and think China and India and everybody else not going to get in? I mean, who do we think we can go beat up and bully into submission and do what the Washington, D.C. swamp tells the world they have to do? Those days are over. And if people don't understand where we are in history, they're going to continue to look at Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, and they're going to stay brain dead, stupid, clueless. They have to wake up.
Wow.
Yeah. And if I may also put something in there, the what we're seeing today is it's deeply rooted issues between the struggle between globalists and national ideologies.
Yes.
Like you said, it's not left or right anymore. This is about control of the world and the resources. And that's why I think it's so important to understand this. We have to go back into history to examine the events and their impact. That way we could look to the present, where we are today and where we could go moving forward. The thing is, how you mentioned, how people are going to continue to watch Fox, and if they're not waking up enough. And that's one of the problems I see in today's world, is that despite how much of the facts that are revealed out there, the gradual erosion of freedoms, individual freedoms, has been so calculated, but through propaganda. And then, of course, by controlling the money supply, you influence, again, those economic conditions that dictate the terms that we live. So I think for people to understand what's happening, you have to look back into history, a little bit of economics, politics even, because if you don't take the initiative to learn what has happened and where we're going, it becomes easier for them to have this control mechanism. It becomes more effective over us. So I always like to remind people that I think we are witnessing two kinds of shows. You're watching the surface show, the political drama, and that's what really captivates the public attention. And underneath all of that, there has been a sinister agenda at one point, and the concentration of wealth and power. But we are at that moment in history where we all have the opportunity to free ourselves from that control mechanism. So it's just an incredible time in history to be alive. It really is. And to make a difference in the world.
I want to take that one step further. If we were to make this analogy of where we are, turn it into a football game, what we have already done is we've done a pick six. They were planning much more sinister things with a one world currency and 15-minute cities and eating bugs, and they got hijacked. Their plan got interrupted.
Right.
Intercepted the ball. We're running it into the end zone, and we're on about the 2-yard line with nobody within 20 yards. And the guy that just intercepted the football is about to spike it in the end zone and do a happy dance. Okay. That football represents global sovereignty for the world. Instead of the other team winning the championship, we intercepted the ball. Now we're the champions.
100%.
And if people don't know where the football is and who has it, they're really behind the 8 ball. And that's an analogy I think most people can understand is if this is a game, who's winning, who's got the ball, who's on offense, who's on defense. Well, the people that are pulling the trigger on the guns and not letting the Secret Service even look at a building while some 20-year-old, 109-pound doofus, wallows around for 30 minutes on the top of a roof and get 8 shots off at the President of the United States. But that was just a whoopsie. We must have missed that one. And if we're going to buy that was just a whoopsie, then we really need to stop and humble ourselves a little bit and question, why do I believe what I believe?
Right.
Well, and to your point, real quick, was on the delay or up to that 2-minute delay from when the shooter started climbing onto the roof to the last shot that he had taken, or the first. Regardless, he was up there for way too long.
Too long.
I read that it was Donald Trump's A team for the Secret Service were called to stand down, and they dismissed and replaced with basically a B team or B squad,
a Homeland Security non-Secret Service with a lot of 5'6" looking women who aren't even tall enough to cover the subject. In England, they call the Special Forces or the Secret Service bullet catchers. Because that's what you have to be willing to do to protect a king or a queen or a dignitary. Secret Service agents are supposed to be willing to put their lives, their bodies in front. How does a 5'6" woman cover a 6'3" president?
Good point.
How did she drape a person and catch and keep the bullets from hitting him and hit her when she comes up below his shoulder? Yet there was about 4 substitute B team, relatively new Homeland Security actings. Who made the call to switch out the forces?
Yeah.
Diversity and inclusion. Diversity inclusion is more important at this time.
Well,
then
the next time you go on a commercial airline flight, make sure at least one of the pilots is blind. Okay.
I'm off that plane. Well, hey guys, I don't want to switch gears here, but we've got I don't want to keep you much longer than anticipated. We're already 11 minutes past the hour. I do want to talk about Project Embridge in a little bit more detail, understanding that we are talking about DLT, we're talking about the BIS, we're talking about another system where they're already exploring CBDCs, and they're already at their MVP, minimum viable product stage. So this is out in the market, and they're using this. Do you mind if we before we dive in, let me play a quick clip from Andy Schectman during that Kitco interview.
59 countries have said they plan to join BRICS. So yes, it is a big deal, regardless of what they are telling you about the petrodollar deal being a nothing burger. It is not a nothing burger. When you see Saudi Arabia decline an invitation from the G7 to come to admit themselves and immerse themselves in all of these organizations, including Project Embridge, which is a system that allows for trading outside the dollar and the SWIFT system, you are setting yourself, we are setting ourselves up for a big letdown if we believe that this is non-consequential.
So thoughts on the infrastructure that is empowering Embridge? Do you think that's XRP? Do you think that's another blockchain? Thoughts on that?
Yeah. If I could go ahead, start.
Please.
Project Embridge is interoperable. Interoperability is the key to having all these technologies to communicate seamlessly through the established protocols already laid out. And I think that's where Ripple, again, in the digital asset, XRP, can coincide and speak the same language, if you will. Mm-hmm. Then when we look at the Brics, they talked publicly about developing a blockchain mechanism to settle cross-border transactions called Embridge. And again, we can go back to the interoperability part, which is a key that's been emphasized by the IMF, which refers again to the seamless connection between the blockchain protocols. And then again, we can look at the dollar as we move forward into a multipolar world, not centered around the dollar US system. We're going to expect new technologies that are interoperable with XRP and other digital assets to play the significant role in the evolution in all of this. So it's kind of a big picture there.
And to Versan's point, just to piggyback on a little bit, one of the core fundamental principles of Ripple is ILP, Interledger Protocol. What that means is an acknowledgement that the world is going to a blockchain of blockchains. It's a bunch of different blockchains, just like there's a bunch of different computers and there's a bunch of different URL addresses. There's a bunch of different providers of solutions, whether it's tokenization or digitization of commodities or tokenization of real estate or stocks or tokenization of artwork or whatever the tokenization and whatever the utility functionality of a blockchain might be. Some will focus on supply chain management. Some will work on trade finance. Some will work on medical records. Some will work on, real world tokenization of commercial real estate debt that can then be almost fractionalized like drops, and people can own little pieces of one overall, collateralized mortgage obligation, and we can drip that into particles. But the point being is there is no one AOL. Okay. AOL was a website and everybody was familiar with it. There are going to be, I heard a stat, shout out to DAI, a good friend of mine and just an OG, a godfather. You talking about somebody that was buying, XRP like back in 2013? I mean, I think he's got 6 or 7 years on me. Okay. So This guy is a godfather. All right. But my point being is he was talking about today, if we think that we are late to the party in this digital cryptocurrency revolution, consider this stat. Right now, I think at the end of 2022, there were somewhere around like 26,000 developers, coders, if you will, on all of these different blockchains that are out building code. The estimate is by 2030, there will be over 1 million full-time coders doing development work on blockchains for various utility purposes. We're going from 26,000 to 1 million developers building out ways to make utility enhance our lives.
Yep.
We're just getting started. We're
Agreed.
at the beginning.
And if I can also touch on something you said, I like how you said it's not just limited to the monetary system. You're right. This is the reset of all things, including the supply chains, trade, medical, and so forth, even gaming, right?
Right.
But we have to recognize that certain technologies that have been adopted by financial institutions and, that are going to be used, utility use case, they're complementary towards each other. They're not really competing against each other in a sense. When you have that mindset, when you're diving into the crypto digital asset space, I think you have a clearer perspective on how to invest in these things. And that's something also we all teach here.
What on that topic, Versan and Rob, understand you guys are great mentors and teachers in the space. What are some impactful words of wisdom that you would also explain to somebody that's new to this industry? If you're willing and able to give that free alpha to those on this channel.
Of course. Okay, well, I would say like just acknowledge the fact that whenever there's a trend, you want to hop on it, but you want to do your research. And also understanding, I think, the historical context behind what we're seeing in the world today, the changes. So you have to take a small dive into economics, a little bit of finance, just to get an idea of like what has happened and where we are and why this transition is happening. Also, the real piece of advice that I like to give people is to be kind and be supportive and empathetic towards people, even if they're not in your district. Love is the answer. And above all things, above money, above everything else, one thing I always teach at the end of my course is just to foster kindness and empathy towards the world and other people. Treat people as you want to be treated. So that's really my best advice. Love more.
You know what? That resonates. I get that just even off your text messages, Versan. They're very warm, inviting, and I appreciate you, sir. So thank you very much for sharing that alpha with the audience here. What about you, Rob? What say you, sir?
Man, Versan, brother, I love you like a brother. You couldn't have said it any better, but the law book says perfect love cast out all fear. And what if, in fact and in truth, our DNA, our spiritual DNA, we're made in the image and likeness of God. And if God is all love and God is omnipotent, then we weren't born broken. We weren't born insufficient. We weren't born losers. We weren't born without a purpose. We weren't born just to be a useless eater. We were designed and created for purpose, with our essence being love. So why are we attacking each other all the time? Why are we fighting? Why are we calling each other names? Why are we allowing ourselves to be separated by race and gender and age and credit score and, educational level or football team or whatever? I mean, why do we fight? It's not our natural state. And to drive that point home, we do not want to go to war, ever. We have to be lied, coerced, threatened, drafted, whatever you want to. It takes a massive amount of psychological programming, fear, deception, whatever they can come up with to get us to want to go to war and kill each other. They have to spend a lot of time doing it because it's not our nature.
Yeah.
It is not in our nature. So who is driving the chaos, the death, the division, the destruction? Who's hoarding all the assets? Who's telling us that we're broken and we're not worthy? Who's telling us we live on a scarce planet? We're running out of water. We're running out of food. Well, if that's the case, how can every single person alive on the planet today, stand in a 10 by 10 foot box in the state of Texas?
Good point. Mm-hmm.
We're not running out of land. We have plenty of fish. The soil isn't naturally poisoned. The fluoride doesn't naturally get in the water. The poison and the particulates don't naturally get into the sky. The petroleum products that they want us to, for every lump, bump, and bruise and idea and boo-boo in our head or otherwise, they want us to put a petroleum product in our bodies.
It's true.
But why? Is it for profit or is it for health? Do we have a healthcare system or a sick care system?
Mm-hmm.
So if we don't know who we are and whose we are and what law is with a capital L, then anybody that shows up with a rule and an order or an edict or a command or a statute or everybody's doing it, or you have to do what the governor says, because when did we forget that everybody on this earth puts their pants on one leg at a time, just like all of us on this call? When did we take a knee, bow down, submit, and say, I got to do it. I've got to fill in the blank. My people are destroyed by their lack of knowledge.
You know what? But I want to play a clip that this is a great segue. Rob, you delivered a powerful speech when you were up on stage at the Quantum Summit along these very lines. I'm going to play this clip, and thanks for teeing it up.
There's one true God who's a lawgiver. He sent a law teacher to teach us the way of those spiritual laws. The spiritual teacher told us he was going to leave an administrator to hang out with us called the Holy Ghost. So we have a law administrator. We have an unbelievable law book We have a law book called the Scriptures that are revealed truths of who we are and whose we are. So we have a lawgiver, a law teacher, a law administrator, and a law book. That makes all of us in this room law students. And if we don't know the law, my people are destroyed by their lack of knowledge. So every truth about this new distributed value system, point to point, person to person, agency, jurisdiction, ability to have value, ability to share that value, the unalienable rights that existed before the Constitution was even written, that our founding fathers talked about. We have all of those laws, but if we're ignorant to them and we don't know them and we don't own them, then we have no ownership rights. We are destroyed by narrative alone, not by law. We're destroyed by being ignorant to what our true essence is and what our rights are. And when we wake up, we outnumber them 1,000,000 to 1. There are laws in this ecosystem, mathematical truths, right, that make this ecosystem work, that make the blockchain work, that make crypto work. But there's also absolute laws that apply in the spiritual realm as well. They apply even on a greater level, on a more powerful level. It's a narrative war, and we're destroyed by our lack of knowledge of those laws. So that's what I would like to get across. So.
I almost started clapping right here.
Preach, Rob, preach.
Such a beautiful message. It was incredible. That was incredible. Very powerful words of wisdom. But you're absolutely right. You know, we need to do everything we can to teach people. Also, common law, I think, is very important. If we can reinstitute common law into today's modern day, that'd be incredible. I'd love to see something like that come into fruition.
Absolutely. And I think by just listening to you gentlemen, as passionate you are and as consistent you are out in the airwaves, I have no doubt that we will get to that point. Now I know we're 25 minutes past the hour, an extra almost 30 minutes. So thank you guys very much for sharing your time with myself and those on the call here. Any last final comments or things that we haven't discussed yet that you think would be impactful for those listening?
I would tell people to stay out of debt. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Just understanding like the dynamics of everything, I think, is just so crucial to navigate what's coming. Try to stay informed, critically assess all the narratives that are narratives, because that's what they are. Whatever's presented to you, carefully examine it, question it. You have to question what you're being told. And I think that's going to help us all just better prepare ourselves for what's coming, because the future is most likely going to bring very significant changes in how we live, how we interact with each other, even in the financial system. So just being aware is the first step towards the adaptation and resilience of the human spirit.
Love that. What say you, Rob? Any final words, sir?
That's beautifully said, Versan.
Thanks.
Now, be kind, be humble. I know that the more I learn or the more I know I don't know. Every time I jump into a rabbit hole, or every time I ask a question, or every time I spend time with somebody smarter than me, it just, I get electrified because I learned something new, but then I also become humble in the fact that, oh my God, there's a billion things just on this topic alone that I don't know. It's exciting that I'm starting down that journey, but look, we have all that we could ever need in this world. But if we're arrogant, divisive, caustic, limited in our thinking, we don't want to unite. We want to divide. We're hurting ourselves. We're hurting the next generation. We're hurting our family. We're hurting our legacy. Look, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. The law book says 365 times, fear not or be not afraid. Why? Because those that want to lord over us they use fear as a form of currency to get us to take a knee so then they can control us and they can harvest our attention. They can put us in a job that we might not like. Then they harvest our wealth through taxes and inflation and having us waste our time doing some mundane job that pays the bills, but it's not our purpose. It's not our calling. It may not even have been our gift. Think about this. If we were given a gift from the Creator, and then the people in this world tell us, no, 9 to 5 cubicle, 40, 50 hours a week, that's what you need to do, then they're not only lying to us, but they're stealing the gift that was given to us because we don't think we should even go look for it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I mean,
very powerful.
That's the ultimate highway robbery, is to steal our identity. And if we don't know who we are, we're lost before we take the next step.
What would you consider a call to action be to ward off these very pitfalls that you're mentioning, Rob?
Just be humble and start asking serious. Ray, you can only be honest with yourself. And I will never know if you're being honest with yourself and candid and objective and truly answering even the questions that you ask yourself. That's a one-on-one journey. I guess the best way I could explain this is that part of the design I see of the world is we're supposed to be our own Indiana Jones. Each of us is that character. We have to, if we so choose, to find that hidden treasure, to find that most valuable thing that you want to find. You got to jump over the canyon. You got to run through the fire. You got to swing over a broken rope. You got to fight a bear. You got to, avoid the 18 snakes. I mean, you've got to get past your fears, take action, and seek what it is, this treasure of this thing that's in us. Sitting on the couch is not going to find you any treasures. And letting somebody else tell you who you are and that there's really no reason to go look for a treasure because there aren't any treasures. So just go over there and do this job over here. How about that? If they program our head and our heart and our mind and take away our desire to want to seek wisdom, seek purpose, take action, unite together in love instead of divide and hate, who wins when you have the dark side calling all the shots versus the light side calling all the shots? It's a pretty simple answer.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Very much so. And you got a praise from Leanne in the audience here. Grateful for your words of wisdom, guys. We're all just walking each other home. And, to that point, and thank you, Leanne, for tuning in and everyone on the call.
Thank you, Leanne.
It's very interesting because, as I believe we start, full transparency, before getting into or following this investment journey, I was a pretty shielded insurance broker, walking in my swim lane and with my horse blinders up for nearly a decade. I mean, of course, you see things that are going on, but you say, you jump to the conclusion, oh, that'll never happen to me, or, oh, I'll get past that hurdle. No big deal, until all of a sudden you're up to your neck in whatever the reality is. But where I'm getting at is, if I were to still be in that situation, one, I wouldn't be doing I wouldn't be listening to myself, like you mentioned, Rob. I wouldn't be taking heed to my inner thoughts of those what ifs. I know it's not good to have those what if thoughts, because you're always going to have them, or think about the grass is always greener on the other side. But when you have these really interesting situations, call it COVID, and where the world is shut down and all of a sudden you're displaced from your normal employment, those things will tend to then lift the horse blinders up, or they should at least. And so or as you're putting on the mask, hopefully the horse blinders come up. And so and hopefully we don't get into anything like that again soon. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard that there's a second calling or something on looming. But regardless, though, maybe that's what it takes for individuals to, where I'm leading to start thinking for themselves, because ultimately, I felt like I found myself living in that insurance role. Fortunately, I'm not discrediting any opportunity, because I'm thankful for it. But ultimately, I don't know if that was something that I truly wanted to do. It was a job that I kind of fell into because of certain circumstances. But again, I'm thankful for them. It was a great springboard. But here I am. I'm trying to say is, and highlight and double down is, now more than ever, we need to start thinking for ourselves And when you do, I believe it's almost like, call it universe, call it God, just things start happening synchronistically. Like, and that's what's really beautiful about that journey. Or once you start taking those steps, I know it's one foot in front of the other. It doesn't all happen at one time. So again, it is a process, but I believe when you start making specific decisions for yourself and seeing things through, the universe or the world opens up. And for me, I personally just want to say thank you guys for being on this call, because you are an example of that right now. I'm on this very journey doing exactly, I'm just speaking from personal experience and surrounding myself with people like you guys. And it's been just a wonderful journey. And to Leanne's point, who I'm also thankful to call her a friend. She is in the greater Link2 family that we've brushed elbows at various events. And so just want to say thank you guys. And again, I love you mucho, and I'm thankful to be on this journey alongside of you, and thrilled to be, in these front row seats right next to you guys and with those on this call, because I mean, we're all hovering above the target here. At least I think so, personally speaking. None of this is financial advice until hopefully we're all proven right. But regardless, anything else, gentlemen, before I let you go here? Love you mucho, Leanne. Thank you.
I'd like to put a quick thing in. Yeah, I want to say thank you to Leanne as well. I really appreciate her comment. It was very sweet. Before I was running a phone repair store, 2 of them. And it was around 2018 when I started, asking questions as far as like my financial situation wasn't getting better. It was getting worse. Then the pandemic came, and in every crisis, I see opportunity. And that's really when I decided to try to sell my shops so I can get out of that and move into where this is all going. So I saw an opportunity very similar to how you did, Ray. So I'm trying to relate to you on this. But in every crisis, there is that opportunity. And 2020 was very different. It woke up so many people. And if I may say this, interestingly, that after the pandemic, now we know who's on the right side and who isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's become very clear, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there. But very similar to your story, Ray, we're all here to learn, and we're all here to take care of each other. And that's, I think, the world we need to live in. Is building a better world is us lifting each other up and walking together. Right.
Absolutely. Anything you'd like to put on that, Rob?
Yeah, to that point, if you have a candle, you can light 1,000 candles, and it doesn't take anything away from your candle, right? So from an abundance standpoint, it doesn't cost us anything to compliment or love or praise or spend time or invest in someone else in that manner, to encourage other people along this journey of discovery. And the other thing I would say is, my wife and I have this conversation all the time. Are we better off before COVID or after COVID?
Yeah.
And the depth, the pain, the learnings, the discovery, the research, the friends, the strength of character, of knowledge, of understanding and wisdom is so much deeper after 4 years of our world being attacked with a biochemical than it was before, when we were just kind of maybe not that deeply thinking or looking at everything. We were just kind of staying busy and going through the motions, being a mom and dad and owning a business and, doing the Truman Show thing. And then all of a sudden there was a crack in the ceiling of the Truman Show, and that light fell and hit the ground. And everybody started going, wait a minute, lights don't fall out of the sky, and here we are on our journey 4 years later. So embrace it, embrace the journey, fear not, seek truth. You'll find people that are equally yoked as you are, and it'll be one of the most fascinating enriching decisions that you ever made, and that is just to seek truth.
Amen.
Amen. Well, just want to say, gentlemen, thank you very much. We've got Rob from the Kuwl Show, Kuwl.show. We've got Versan Aljarrah from Blackswan Capitalist. That's Blackswan.io, and that's Kuwl.show. Please give them a follow across all socials. Check them out on their websites. Appreciate you guys for hopping on. As mentioned during this call, on Thursday of this week, Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Eastern, going to be hopping on another live stream. Excuse me, actually, we just amended the times. It's going to be 12 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern, excuse me, guys. I'll be on a live stream with Jay from Spend the Bits. Again, we're going to be talking about some very interesting developments that are occurring, not just on the XRP ledger, but beyond that as well. Jay, as mentioned, has built one of the most promising payment apps that I think are going to turn some heads when we discuss this during the call. So I just want to say, look forward to seeing you guys Thursday. Again, that's 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. Sorry about that. There's, like we were discussing before this call, life comes up and things happen, and we're just rolling with the punches, but we're going to be delivering some quality content regardless later on this week. Gentlemen, I appreciate you for hopping on today. Love you mucho. Looking forward to the next time we brush elbows, hopefully either at the next XRP Las Vegas conference or potentially at the next Quantum Summit, maybe another one. I know that you guys were, Versan, you mentioned that you're trying to corral and bring people to Texas. So let's see what happens. Maybe there's something that happens in your neck of the wood.
How about Ripple Swell in Miami coming up in October? There you go.
Talking to Brad Kimes about maybe bringing something to Texas. That'd be great.
That would be
Texas is a big state, and there are very exciting things happening here. It's just nobody's here to herald what you see in XRP Vegas and in what melted with the QFS. But we're going to get together soon, and I will be attending the next Vegas conference. I already confirmed that with Brad, so that's for sure.
Good. Yes. Well, gentlemen, it was again the privilege. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and Rob, Versan, love you mucho. I'll talk to you soon. Alrighty.
Love you mucho.